Alright guys, here we go again. So, hot cut Hardie. I built this thing 25 years ago. I used a bandsaw to cut it out of a piece of steel. I don't remember what kind of tool steel it was, and it doesn't work very well. And I'm going to build a Brazeal style hot cut. And I've got 3 anvils, so we're going to see if we can make it fit at least 2 of those. But first I have to build a bottom fuller, and I saw one like this online, so I figured I'd give this a shot. And you build just the bottom fuller, and then you hold a top fuller in your hand, workpiece in the other hand, and let the power hammer do the rest. I've not done this before with this kind of fuller, so it's going to be interesting. Alright, we'll get that into the power hammer and clamp it down. And line up our fuller piece. The bottom fuller on this, I've got a piece of 3/4 inch stainless steel round, and I'm just welding it to that angle iron. And the little leg I welded on there is a stand to keep it in line with the top of the railroad track that's on there. So I gave it a good weld, don't want it to pop loose. And if I had this to do again, I think I would build a fuller for the top and line them up. I'm rounding one end off because I want to use it to fuller out the blade of the hot cut. I've not seen that done before, but I thought I'd give it a try. See if I could come up with something that would work for me a little easier. I want to use the power hammer solely to build this, and I don't want to use a cross peen to sort of chop that blade out, spread it out. See if I can do it with the end of this fuller. And it stays in place. Yay. Now, I don't have a pair of tongs that's large enough to hold onto the piece of 1.5 inches that I've got. So I've got these old tongs. I don't even know where I got them. They're really crappy and they weigh a bunch. The reins are super heavy, super thick. And I figure I can get them in the forge and reconfigure them to hold on to my stock. That's a 4¼ inch piece of, well, it came out of a box that said 1045, but I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's what it is. So if I can heat those up, bend them around that, and close the reins up a little bit, I'll be able to use those to get this thing into the power hammer. Alright, so into the forge we go. And this actually wasn't too bad. It just took a minute. But at this point I realized I gotta build myself some more tongs. I'm very limited on those. But for this project this worked out okay. A little bit of adjustment. And later on in the video you're going to notice there's a weld on one of those jaws. It actually cracked on me about halfway through. I put a little weld on it to hold it together. Cool it all off in the bucket, and we'll get it right into the forge. And there it is. I think it'll work. So I'll have to apologize for the footage, the first couple of heats in the power hammer. The focus was off a little bit, but about the third heat I got that squared away, so sorry about that, guys. And it took me about 4 heats to get this thing hammered out on the power hammer. I'm drawing out the taper that goes into the Hardie hole. And I think my first heat, the core wasn't quite warm enough. Didn't seem to move as well as I wanted it to. Either that or it's higher carbon steel than I think it is. And 1045 tends to like a higher heat in my experience. But it didn't take too long. It was a few minutes. And the taper started drawing out pretty easily, quickly. Third heat. And of course, the thinner it got, the more easily it was moving. And I drew this thing down to a taper at the end of about 5/8 of an inch, which is a little longer, narrower taper than I've seen other people do these. Because I've got a smaller anvil, it's got a like 3/4 inch hole, Hardie hole in it. And then I've got my mild steel anvil I built. It has a 1-inch Hardie hole in it. And I think this stock is going to be too small for my big anvil. It's got a 1 1/4 inch Hardie hole in it. So I'm just going to dress up this taper with the flatter. And this seemed to work out really well. This is the reason I built this flatter. If you've seen that the video where I built this thing, this is what I had in mind for it. Sorry about the view there. A little clean up around those corners. Make them look a little better. And I'd clean the bottom of that up real nice. Alright, I had a little bit of trouble with this. Like I said, if I had to do it again, I would probably have built a holder for that top fuller. But it was more me than anything. I had a little hard time coordinating that bar. It was bouncing around a little bit. But it eventually got the job done. And it did a pretty good job. And that didn't take too long. A couple of heats and it was done. There you go. I'm going to flatten this blade area out just a little bit before I put that fuller back in and start spreading it out into its blade shape. And by this time that stuff was good and hot all the way through, and it was moving pretty well, but I was keeping the heat up on it a little bit. Seemed to be pretty tough stuff. I ended up spinning that fuller around. I didn't have enough room on the other end because of the workbench. And it took me a little bit to get used to this. It was bouncing around a little bit, but it my lack of control rather than the tool. The tool ended up working out quite well. And spread that blade area out pretty quickly, and a good result. And then I just went to the hammer to finish flattening it out. Drawing it out and get rid of those cross peen marks from that fuller. Sorry about the focus. And it's coming along there pretty well. Surprisingly, this was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. And the flatter to that blade, and took care of it in pretty quick order. Although my tongs did leave some marks on the taper on the other end. I ended up cleaning that up a little bit again, just to make it look as clean as I could. I use a hammer to do that. Nice light touches. I did a good job that way. Getting rid of those tong marks. And give it a good scrubbing up with the wire brush. It had been in and out of the fire quite a few times, and then had scaled up pretty badly, so I scrubbed it pretty hard. Cleaned it up as best I could. I do love those big block brushes. They work really well. Now up to the grinder, put an edge on this thing so we can give it a try. And the sparks that were coming off of it told me that it probably was some 1045, but you can never be positive. But it looked pretty good anyway. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. There you go. Ready to give it a shot. So this is a 125-pound anvil with a 3/4 inch hole in it. And it wedges in real nice. It stands up a little tall, but works real well. And then over to the mild steel anvil, and it was intended for this. It'll live in there, it'll stay there. I use that anvil for a cutting table and different Hardie tools, that kind of thing. And people have said that these wedges will break your anvil, and I really don't believe that, but doesn't really matter if it's in this mild steel thing. Mild steel would bend rather than break anyway, so good place for it. And it seems to work really, really well. A lot of control with it. It kept a nice sharp edge through the whole thing. Didn't seem to get any softer or distort at all. So anyway, guys, there you go. Looking around the shop and realizing that I have a lack of decent tongs in the shop. Next time around, we'll be building a set of hollow bit tongs inspired by Rowan Taylor. We'll see how that goes. Give you one last look at it. I wanted to thank everybody who has subscribed. Thank you for your comments, your questions. I really appreciate it. So if you found any of this useful or entertaining, hit like. If you'd like to see more and you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe and share. So as always, take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.